But welcome to Console Corner. My name is Blue. It's episode 6 for this season here of the PCL as well as Console Corner. And we're going to start off with some Blu Talk. My thoughts here. So let's go over a few things here. In the Paladins Console League, aka the PCL, there are 16 teams. That means every week there's 8 matches being played. Now, of those 8 matches in week 10, only 4 of them were played. There were 4 disqualifications. eStorm from Xbox NA has school finals. So their captain actually forgot to submit their roster for that week. So they gave Cats on Mars a free win. They gave Elevate a free win. They would have faced Elevate, yes. So Elevate gets yet another free win, and that is their third one. That's their 3rd week this season. They've only played 18 games total. They've 3-0'd every single opponent they have played. And out of 10 weeks, they've only played 7 of those. Well, they've 3-0'd 21 times. Low-Key Scheming also did not play. They were planning on playing and they were ready to, but however, their support, Hatsu Chibi, who's also their captain, was having internet problems and wasn't able to get his internet back online in time to even play any of the matches. Well, we'll talk a little bit later about that as well and what could have avoided that. Also, Aaron Manor did not play out of the PS4 EU region. They also did not submit a roster. And the thing with Aaron Manor is that they tried to argue with the admins within the Discord the entire time. And then they took to Twitter afterwards, claiming that the rules are bent for different teams and different players. Their example was that Flashpoint didn't sign up 1 week on time, and they were still able to play. Well, here's what happened. Flashpoint tried to sign up that week. The form didn't work. Well, what did Flashpoint do? They immediately submitted a ticket for help through ProHelp at HighResStudios.com. They were answered, and they sought a solution out through the emails. Therefore, they were able to compete that following week. With Aaron Manor, they claimed that they did the same thing and submitted an email saying that the form didn't work as soon as they figured that out, which would have been days beforehand. Well, the problem is that in the Discord on game day, they still had not gotten a reply through email, is what they claimed. Why wouldn't you just screenshot that and put that into the Discord to say, hey, the form didn't work. We submitted an email to ProHelp and nothing came of it. Instead, you didn't do that. Instead, you continued to argue with admins. Instead, you continued to be immature and childish. And then you took to Twitter to say that rules are being bent. Not good. Not good. Doesn't look good for you. Doesn't look good for the players. Doesn't look good for the teams. And it doesn't look good for the league overall. Last but not least, we have Retaliation, who also was disqualified for not submitting a roster or not showing up. Who really cares at this point? Because this is the 3rd time Retaliation has had to be disqualified for not having enough players, for not submitting a roster, or for not showing up. Whatever it may be, this is the 3rd time. 10 weeks, and they've only played 7 of those. Retaliation. Actually, no, they've only played 6 of those. Yeah, it's week 10. Week 7 was a bye week. So Retaliation and Elevate have only played 6 weeks. So Elevate has only played 18 games. Meanwhile, Retaliation has only played, they've played more than 18 games because they've had a couple 4 or 5 game sets against eStorm and Cats on Mars. But the point is that Retaliation has done this before. And it all comes back to their captain, Island Shots, who, admittedly, in my opinion, I think it's time he steps down and leaves the PCL. Next, we're going to talk about Team Viral, or Viral No More. Now, what happened was in Game 3 against Radiant this past week, they went to Fish Market. Now, this is the first time, it was their map choice. This is the first time Viral's picked a map other than the original 4 they've been playing all season, like Frog, Jag, Bright Marsh, and Stone Cape. They've played 24 games going into this past week. They were 0-24, 13 maps in Paladins, and they've only chosen to play on 4 of them the entire time. Well, they decided to pick a new map, but unfortunately it didn't work out for them. And it wasn't because of the map, and it wasn't because of their play on the map specifically. But during the draft, apparently, their last pick, they were second team pick, so they had the very last pick, and they were trying to pick Saris. They had no supports on their team at the moment. Well, apparently a bug came through in the game, and they were unable to pick Saris. So instead, with 10 seconds winding down on the clock, they decided to lock in Ashe. In doing so, they tried to tell the admins that they were unable to pick the champion they wanted. They tried to make a restart. They actually left the game and then re-entered. And doing so, they decided to jump off the map a bunch of times, just walk out of spawn and feed, or just sit in spawn and do nothing. The game was originally cut very, very, very short off stream, and they didn't even show it. Since then, Viral has dropped the roster, so Team Viral, the org, is no longer a part of the PCL, and they'll probably have to go back to their original name, which ironically was called Always Feeding, and they are being issued a punishment from Skillshot themselves. Now, what that punishment is, I do not know. I have not spoken to anyone from Viral after hearing that they would be getting punished by Skillshot for their actions. I did speak to Duck, who is the CEO of Viral, and he was very adamant about dropping them, and he wanted Console Pro News to be the ones who released that information. So we did so using his exact words. But here's the solution. Duffman, who's the captain of Viral, did come to me and say, what would you have done, or what's the alternative options in that situation? And I explained to him very cautiously that, hey, you may not agree with the admins. Some of the players in your division and teams may not like you. They may disrespect you. It is what it is. You've gotten the short end of the stick. At this point in time, you're 0-24 or 0-26 going into this game 3. I think you have to know that there's no chance you're going to make this midseason invitational land. The best thing you can do is just play it out. Play it out. I know it's going to be painful. I know it's going to be rough. I know you're triple tanking with double damage, no support. You're going against Radiant with this. You're on Fish Market. It's going to be difficult. You have a 1% chance of winning this game, but just play it out, as painful as it's going to be. The other options, there were other options. During the draft, if you try to pick Saris and she's not available, just close the app and then message the other team saying, hey, there was a bug. We couldn't pick the champion we wanted. Here's the champion we were going to pick. It's Saris. Then you remake the lobby, go through the draft super fast, and you're able to pick Saris at that time. Because before that lobby is recreated, you can restart your game client, your game app, and you'll be able to pick that champion most likely because the bug will be gone. But don't just insta-lock something because you're nervous. Just close app. Message them and say, hey, we got a bug. Let's redo this draft. Same picks. We're going to pick Saris last, or Saris was going to be our pick. We were unable to pick her, things like that. Worst comes to worst, there's other supports on the board. Take one of those at this point. I don't believe auto pick actually works in custom games for ranked settings. So if it does, could have let it auto pick for you. It would have definitely auto picked a support because it fills the role that's missing. But yeah, I know it's harsh, but just you got to either play it out or you got to close the app and say, hey, we had a bug. We wanted to pick Saris. That's who we were going to pick. Let's recreate the lobby. Next is tier 1 roles or tier 1 players. So let's talk about tier 1 players right now. Okay, you have 3 tiers of players, and you have tier 1 who are the best of the best in the PCL. Then you have tier 2 who are kind of the middle ground between the best and the worst. And then you have tier 3 who are the bottom players of the league. And then, some tier 3 players that are not in the league as well. Maybe they weren't good enough to get into the league. Maybe they were, had unfortunate team situations, whatever it may be. So, according to the players, the tier ones have clear advantages and all of these better mechanics and all of these skills, and they know how to play the game and all of that. Well, no. All of that is big BS. Big. There's only one factor that separates the tier one from everyone else. Okay. And that's LAN appearances and league wins. How many wins you have in the league and how many LANs you've been to. That's the only thing that separates tier one from anybody else in this league. And I'll tell you why. It's because in the tier one bracket, you have all these people. They don't know how to act. Neither do the tier twos, neither do the tier threes. Everyone acts the same. And we're going to go into some examples here, okay? Something happens where Skillshot, cuts the funding for PCL, or they create MSI, which is cross-play only. They scrap the console wars for this midseason invitational. Well, let me tell you something. Yes, you're upset. Yes, the players deserve to be upset. Yes, they should be upset. Yes, they're allowed to be upset. Yes, you can voice your opinions, but do not do it in a negative manner. Do not bash Skillshot. That's not going to help. What about the players who bash other players constantly in the public eye on social media? Don't do that. You don't see, the PML is just like the PCL too. They do the same thing on social media. The players, they roster swap, they do all of these things. And in the public's eye, it's just garbage. It's trash. It's trash tier, everyone. You look at players in the PPL. Yes, they get paid more. Yes, they go to Atlanta to play all of their games. Yes, they're on PC. Yes, they're the greatest players in the world. Yes, they do this. Yes, they get that. Yes, they get that. Yeah, do you know why? Because they continue to prove that they should get it. They continue to prove that they are professionals inside the game and outside of the game. Something happens, you don't see them complaining on Twitter. And when they do, it's a big deal because they don't do it often. You can go on Twitter every single day and almost guarantee 99% of the time PML and PCL players are going to have people trash talking each other. There's going to be memes. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. You go on Twitter and you see these PPL players. If there's a big argument going down or a big drama session going down, it happens and then it's over. And then it's calm waters for weeks. For a long time. They had that big drama Twitter conversation between some of the PPL players and Gormizer and Rain Day when they were talking about how the casters keep mentioning too much about those teams that practice inside the studio. That was a big thing on Twitter, on social media. Now what? It's gone. They don't talk about it anymore. They don't talk about it as much, right? But with the PCL, it's every single day I get on. We got to talk about, the game is dead. This, that, blah, 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 blah. Like, just act professional. You can do whatever you want behind the scenes, behind closed doors. Another thing is the professionalism needs to be tightened up in the public's eye because it's getting a lot of people in trouble. Look at Swiper. He's gone because in the public eye, he didn't remain professional. Look at Sir James Parker. He's suspended until the end of the first phase, the first split, because he didn't keep his opinions outside of the public eye. The professionalism needs to be tightened up by everyone. The tier 1 players only beat out tier 2 and tier 3 because they've been to LAN, or they've won more games in the league, or they have better aim, or they're on teams with other tier 1 players. You have to separate yourself from these players outside of the game. Not only inside of the game. That's all I ask. It's very hard when something happens with Skillshot like MSI, and I try to do my best to try and prove that we deserve a console LAN still. Try to prove that we should have a console wars. And then stuff like this happens. 4 disqualifications, players not showing up, players swapping teams every week. And then we have players just bashing the game, bashing the employees, tagging them in all of these memes and everything every single day for weeks on end. It's very hard for me to go to them and say, hey, we deserve a console wars. We should still have console wars. And they're like, oh, well, have you seen this list of 1 million tweets today only? They're not professional. Why should we give them anything when they act like immature children? I understand a lot of the player base is, in fact, children age-wise, but that doesn't mean anything, really. So moving on. Let's talk about Big Money. Okay, Big Money went up against Onslaught. Big Money no longer has Roman Rulers as he's left the team. They have parted ways mutually. And now Izzy Mitchell steps in, who was playing on low-key scheming, and he's going to be main tanking for the side of Big Money now. Now, Izzy did look okay. He's been looking pretty swell over the past few weeks with low-key scheming as well. And I was pretty surprised that low-key actually dropped Izzy. And we'll get into that a little bit later as well when we talk about low-key scheming. So they get Izzy Mitchell. Most Salty is now in the lineup as their support player. They no longer have Geppetto, which also means they no longer have a Maldamba player. Okay? Most Salty can play the Grover, but that's banned. He can play the Saris because pretty much everyone in the PCL should be able to play the Saris. He can play the Ying, but that's a niche pick right now. And he can also play things like Genos, but then again, most supports in the PCL should be able to play Genos as well. They didn't look better. I'll tell you this right now. Big Money did not look better. They went up against Onslaught, of course, so it's tough to look better against a top team in your division, especially a top team in the league, let alone. But they did not look better at all. And I think, Izzy, Kev, Falcon, and Galaxy, I think they need to finish strong in order to look for new opportunities into relegations or maybe towards the end of the season here. Try to get on new teams, maybe even build a new team between the three of them. But this Big Money, the Big Money experiment has failed, in my opinion. It's time to let Big Money die. It's time to let it die. Just finish strong or as strong as you can and let it die. The experiment's over. Let's talk about Onslaught here. Onslaught looks so-so. They didn't look great, but they didn't look bad as well. They had a couple good plays here. But the problem is that they still do not have a Makoa player. I know we've seen Swarmsoul play the Makoa a few times, but it wasn't up to par, especially when they went up to heating up, in my opinion. So they still don't have a Makoa player. Other Shutter's not going to play it. Sorrow can't play it. And Sorrow's not on the team anymore either. So even if they were to bring him back, there were talks and rumors that they were going to be able to secure Sir Benji from Aerial Arise to put into their roster. Now, he didn't really play Makoa here for the past probably a year in the PCL. Even in the original inaugural season, he's always had Alex Kidd on his team, who would be the Makoa player for him. So they were unable to secure Sir Benji. So Swarmsoul will still be, or Little Big White Boy as he is titled in the game, will still be in that starting rotation as of right now. And the other Shutter is the main tank right now, but he's their weakest link, and I'll tell you why. Swarmsoul is also one of their weak links, and teams are only as strong as their weakest links. And Onslaught, they're not looking to be worried about low-key scheming. They're not looking to be worried about Big Money, obviously. They're worried about heating up, and they will face them one more time here, and it's week 12, which is the final week of this split. So they're gearing up for that. In order to do so, you have to imagine that they need to have the best lineup possible. Well, the thing is that the other Shutter, regardless if Swarmsoul or Benji is playing for them, if Benji comes over and plays for them, it doesn't matter. The other Shutter is their weakest player, especially when he's playing main tank. His champ pool is very small on that. Mainly just playing the Fernando and the Inara. He can play some other things as well, but not as great as he can the Inara and the Fernando. Flat out. And it just really depends on how well he does. They have Fiery Impact, they have TKO Ghost, good DPS players. They can both flex to off tanks as well. Fiery a little bit better than TKO this season so far. And then Neil or Wear the Guap. Now he's probably the best player on that team, personally. So they're going to show up, they're going to do their jobs, but for the other shutter, he's got to step up. He's got to show some great plays being made by himself because he's the weakest link. And again, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Let's talk about Neil, though, or Where to Guap. I just said he's the best player on Onslaught. Problem with him is that he has a small champ pool when it comes to competitive play. We've seen him play Damba before. We've seen him play. I've actually got some numbers that I ran up on him. I've actually got some numbers I ran up on Where the Guap for this season so far. We've seen him play Damba in the past. I know last season he was on Oni Channers. I think he played it once, maybe twice that season. But let's look at it this way. Onslaught has played 30 games so far this season. Where to Guap has played in every single one of those 30 games. And in those 30 games, he has played Saris 11 times. He has played Genos 8 times. He has played Grover 8 times. He has played Ying 1 time. That's 28 times between those 4 champions, right? The last 2 games that are unaccounted for are both Grok games, and that is when TKO Ghost was playing Damba, so they had double support, and Where the Guap was on Grok. The second one where the Guap played Grok was when TKO was on Pip, and that was this past week against Big Money. So 30 games, he's never played Damba. 30 games, and he's predominantly played Saris with 11, and Genos and Grover both have 8 apiece. So Grover is banned out of the PCL right now, league-wide. And that leaves Genos and Saris. Now, he did play Grok this past week, but that was the second time all season. So you have to realize that if you're going up against him, it's pretty easy to do that, to ban him out. We saw it with Cyclone versus Bustdown, and we'll talk about them a little bit later too. We saw it with them. Fanatics playing support. He's a frontline player. And then you have Dreams, who prefers Saris. But you have to look at it this way. Genos is really strong in the meta right now. So if Genos, who is a ban-worthy champion right now as well and has been getting banned fairly often, what if Genos gets banned and they first pick Saris as Cyclone did with the Fanatics? Because, Genos and Saris are easier for him to play since he's not a natural support player. So what are you going to do if you're going up against Onslaught? I mean, granted, they have 2 great DPS players. They can pull out nice DPS. They can get the Vivians, they can get the Victors, they can get the Bomb Kings and all of that. But at the same time, you have to realize that if there's no one there to support, then it's not going to really work out well for the team overall in the games. So if you ban out Genos, you first pick Saris, or you ban out Saris as well, even if you want to go that crazy with it. Grover's gone. All that's left for him is Grok and Ying. So, I mean, and if you grab the Grok, you're going to possibly force them into a double support. You can load up on Cauterized Champion. So it just gets really, really interesting. So that's the problem with Onslaught right now. Not only a weak play, but small champ pool. Small champ pool from what we've seen so far in the PCL from their support player. Maybe he's holding out on us. Who knows? Let's talk about Stush Gaming here. Stush is a top 8 team in the PCL, flat out. I will tell you that right now. They are top 8 out of all 16. The only ones in front of them are Heating Up, Onslaught, Flashpoint, Bustdown, Cyclone, Cats on Mars, and Elevate. Those 7 are in front of them. Stush Gaming is number 8. They did get 3-0'd by Flashpoint this past week, but let's talk about it this way. They got 3-0'd, yes. So, you look at the scoreline, they lost 3-0. Stush is garbage. But then you look at the individual game scores. First game, they lose 4-0. Okay, well, like I said, they're garbage, right? Game 2, they go to Stone Keep, and they take Flashpoint, whose best map is Stone Keep. They take them to a 4-3. Next game, game 3, they take them to a 4-3 again. I think it was on Timbermill. So, this was a good set. It only went 3 games. This was a spectacular set. I really thoroughly enjoyed watching Flashpoint versus Stush Gaming. And I had to get into an argument with someone in my stream personally that night because they were like, oh, I was sleeping. I don't need to wake up to watch Flashpoint just dominate and destroy Stush Gaming. All right, dude. Well, without saying any names, you're not in the PCL there, bud, and Stush is 100 times better than you, and they're a top 8 team in the league, and I'm tired of trying to tell people this. They're learning and they're improving. It may be super slow paced compared to what they want and what other teams have done in the past, but they're still learning and improving at the same time. Doesn't matter. Let's talk about Flashpoint. Flashpoint, I was speaking about role models and stuff, they're kind of memey. That whole team between Op and Legacy, Legacy barely tweets, and when he does, it's a slandering meme tweet towards whoever he wants, and he basically gets away with it because the way he words them. He thinks he's a master technician when it comes to tweeting. I'm not saying he isn't, but I'm not saying he is. And he's a good friend of mine, so I'm not bashing him. You have to understand that. Prosper, he just sticks to himself, man. Usually he gets in on some of the jokes on Twitter and stuff, but he never really says anything bad about anyone. He also thinks Stush is a top 8 team. He thoroughly enjoys helping other players. He thoroughly enjoys putting out videos on YouTube as well for people to watch and things like that. So, I mean, he does a lot for the community for the limited resources he has. So, we talk about role models earlier on, and Flashpoint, probably the best when it comes to it. You look at Good Lad, you look at Storm Avatar, dude, you wouldn't think that they don't have Twitters because they simply barely ever tweet. And they never get in on any of the drama publicly. They never state their opinions out loud. So, things like that. Just great professionalism coming out of them. But they did 3-0 Stush Gaming, so they were able to take yet another victory. And interesting enough, they did ban out Splitstone Quarry against Stush Gaming, so they didn't want to chance losing on that map again to the same team. Let's talk about Bustdown. Bustdown versus Cyclone. That was match of the week. It was their third meeting this time, and it went 5 games. But Bustdown lost 3-2, and let's talk about this. Let's dive a little deeper into this. So Bustdown brings in 2 ringers with Emmerfish and Cool Matt, which means Ariavin will not be playing because Cool Matt takes his spot. Then Emmerfish takes its Whitey spot. So a little bit later on in that day, after the matches had already been played, Console Pro News, we here at Console Pro News, we dove a little deeper into Con stats because Con actually has the highest pick percentage in the PCL league-wide. He also has the most wins. So we dove in and said, hey, what teams are performing super well on Con? Well, one of them was Bustdown. And we put out that tweet, and Emmerfish had to respond saying that Bustdown has never lost with him on Con. So we went back and we check to see how many times he actually played Con for the 5 games he played with Bustdown. It was 2. The only 2 times they won. So yes, Bustdown has never lost with Emmerfish on Con. He is 2-0. He replaced It's Whitey. It's Whitey is 5-0 on Con for Bustdown alone. Why did you replace him? Okay, let's talk about Ariavin. Now, Ariavin's only missed 1 other week this season, and that's because he didn't wake up in time. So he was awake this time, and they were supposed to have Cool Matt sub for Wildcard, which, again, would not be a good idea. And instead, last-second decision, someone in the chat asked, hey, are we playing with Wildcard or Ari? And they simply said, Ari, and no one else said a word. So Ariavin was left out on the doorstep along with It's Whitey. Cool Matt, going into this, playing for Cats on Mars, was 2-7 on Victor. Now, some people may say, oh, well, he has to go up against Elevate. Well, up against Elevate, he barely played Victor. 5, actually. 6 of those 9 games where he's 2-7 on Victor, are against teams like E-Storm and Retaliation. So for someone who's been to LAN twice, has won a LAN once, and is supposed to be a mechanical genius on hit scans, with a depleting champ pool in the current meta, is 2-7 against Retaliation and E-Storm on arguably one of his best champions. Why is that? Why is he still regarded as such a great player? Why are you still going to replace someone that has been growing with your team synergy and chemistry-wise for that? At the end of that 5-game set with Bustdown versus Cyclone, Cool Matt did play Victor 4 more times. He won 1 of those. He then ended up finishing 3-10 on Victor this season. Now, I'm not knocking Cool Matt, man. I love him as a person, and I love him as a player. But that ain't it, Chief. Next, let's look at Aryavan, who could have been a better player, better fit in this lineup than Cool Matt, because he already has proven that he is. His champ pool is a little bit more wider. He can flex a little bit harder than Cool Matt can currently in the current meta. Plus, Cool Matt and Emmerfish have not been playing with Bustdown as long as It's Whitey and Aryavan have been. So you've grown some chemistry, you've grown some synergy with those 2 players, and now you don't use them. So you sacrifice synergy and chemistry for the Xbox NA ego tactic, skills win everything. Well, that tactic and that 2 ringer bring in just got you 1 extra map against a team that you haven't beaten set-wise this entire season. You were supposed to be the team that takes down Cyclone. You were supposed to be the team that proves that Xbox NA can run the scene still. Well, all you're doing is running the 2nd place column of the weakest division, in your opinion. And to top it all off, Cyclone is going to LAN. They're not going to lose to Viral, and they're not going to lose to Radiant. So throw out that it's mathematical equation where they could lose their LAN spot, because it's not happening. And also, not only is it not happening, not only is Cyclone going to LAN, but you lost to a team that doesn't have a support player. You lost to a team that's going to LAN without a support player. Think about this. They had Fanatics play support this past week. He's a frontline player, and we've never seen him play support in all of his PCS and PCL career until now. A couple weeks ago, they had Kings play support, who is a damage player. Guess what? Smutney, oh, well, he used to be a support player, but he hasn't done it in over a year. Oh, Welsh Mania used to be a support main, but he hasn't done that since Valencia, which was July of 2017. So again, I iterate. Cyclone's going to LAN without a support player, and they beat you. And you tried to bring in 2 ringers. Shame on you. Abusing the roster rules, and still, it doesn't help you in your advantage. Let's talk about MSI chilling like a villain. Yes, that's right. Flashpoint, Cyclone, and Elevate have pretty much locked in guaranteed spots to MSI, so they're just chilling. I mean, Elevate's pretty much been chilling this entire time, dude. They haven't even played 3 weeks. They got it for free because of disqualifications. And even the ones they had to play, pretty much free. I mean, Payne has a 9+ KDA right now. No one can kill him. It's ridiculous. It's whatever. Cyclone's not going to lose to Radiant or Viral at all. I've already said that. So mathematically, yes, it is possible they won't make land, but mathematically, logically, no. Flashpoint, they lose maps. They can lose maps, but they're not going to lose matches or full sets here, so they don't really care. They can just turn their serious gameness up by like the flip of a light switch. That's basically how it goes. Now it's time for these 3 teams to start to look at the PML teams. It's going to be a coin flip to determine who they face, but we do know that EU PML teams will face NA PCL teams, and EU PCL teams will face NA PML teams. So at this point in time, you can pretty much just start looking at the top 2 teams, Sour Team and Penta in the EU PML, and I believe Sanguine and Nation of Power. Yes, Nation of Power and Sanguine for the NA PML. So just for these 3 teams, it's gonna be like, hey, if we got to face these guys, this is what we're going to do. So let's start doing our homework on them. That's pretty much all it is. Let's talk about Izzy Mitchell real quick. We're running short on time, so we're going to try and flow through this one. Izzy Mitchell was actually dropped from low-key scheming, and he was picked up by Big Money once Roman Rulers left. So that actually worked out well for Big Money because they need a main tank. Izzy Mitchell is a main tank right now, so he slides into that fairly nicely. Now he just needs to work with them and build chemistry and start to practice with them. On the other hand, low-key scheming got disqualified because they didn't have a sub on their roster when Hatsu Chibi's internet totally took a crap. So guess what? Why'd you drop Izzy Mitchell? Yeah, he could have been that sixth man you needed right there. So they decided to drop him because Business originally was going to take a 2-week break. And during that break, Cop had been dropped as the sub for Heating Up. So he had come back to low-key scheming, and he was going to sub in for Business. Well, now they moved Cop back to Frontline, as well as Business, who decided to cut his break short. And then they said, oh, well, we got 6 guys. Let's drop Izzy. Here's my opinion. Don't do that. Take Izzy back, put him on main tank, put Business back on off-tank flex, and put Cop back on damage. You know who that leaves out? It leaves out Mwadak, who you left on DPS, who in all of the matches he's played this season seems to not figure out how to turn around when he's getting shot in the back of the head for about 35 seconds. Now, Mwadak is mechanically a good player, but he still needs time to develop his skills mechanically and game sense wise. So putting him on the bench could be a good option for him to learn from some people that have more skill and viability in the lineup than him. But the problem is just like every other player, nobody wants to be the sub. Well, guess what? If you were the sub, Mwadak, and Izzy was still on the team and Hatsu's internet took a poop, Cop would be healing and you would be on damage. Wow. The way the wonders work, because you never know what's going to happen on game day. Like someone's internet taking a crap and you don't have a sub. So next is the Blue League. This is my proposed format to kind of tighten the competition, create better quality matches, and ultimately get a better payday for the players and the teams as well. So right now we have 4 divisions, 4 teams each. That's 16 teams total in the league, right? So there is no Sony crossplay with Xbox. So instead, what we do is we create 2 divisions, right? A PS4 division and an Xbox division, right? And what we do is we take 4 to 6 teams only, right? So we combine NA and EU. The reason why we do that is because it's already combined player-wise, right? So you have Skeppy playing in EU with Flashpoint. You have players like Goodlad who played in NA with Heating Up for a week. You have players like Coolmat, Emmerfish, Dreams, all of them going to Bustdown, who is playing on EU as well. So yeah, ping's going to be a problem, but I'll explain how that can be a problem and a gift. It could be a burden and a gift at the same time, right? So here's what we do. We do 4 to 6 teams per division. EU and NA are combined, right? So the top 2 make LAN. Quality games, right? So you would have the top 2 from each go to LAN. You'd still have the same amount of teams going to LAN. That's 4. This could potentially open up the idea that Xbox NA is the best again. So you could have, Cats on Mars and Elevate going to LAN from the Xbox division because they're both with better records than Cyclone and Bustdown, or however you want to jumble it up, right? So you would do EU and NA servers combined, right? So what you would do is you would use the servers as home court advantage, because when you're playing online in a regular season like an esport like this, you don't have home court advantage because there's no fans unless your mom's standing behind you cheering you on, right? So there's no fans like there would be at a normal sporting venue or at HRX, for example, right? So the home team gets to pick the server, and that's their home court advantage. At the same time, the away team will have that disadvantage, but at the same time, if it is only a 3-game set, they still get to pick 2 of those 3 maps because they won't have first pick. So the away team still gets some sort of advantage by being able to pick the map advantage. Now, that still gets flopped if they're still winning the set and the home team gets to pick the maps. But the point of the matter is that if each team plays each other 4 times during a split, like they are this split, then each time that someone faces the same team, there'll be an equal amount of home court advantage with ping and servers, because the EU team will be the home team twice during those 4 matchups, and the NA team will be the home team the other 2 times during those 4 matchups, right? So there's no Sony crossplay with Xbox. So right now that is the only thing. Now, some people did come to me on Twitter when I proposed this and said, we should just have it on Xbox only league, blah, 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 blah. Well, Smite had that and it wasn't nice. So they decided to add PS4 into it. Also, let me tell you this. You cannot do that because it's unethical. The reason why it's unethical is because you're segregating the community, 1. 2, you're basically saying if you make it Xbox only, you're basically saying PS4, F you. If you make it PS4 only, you're basically saying Xbox, F you. And there's some players that deserve to play this game competitively, but might not have the finances to be able to buy an Xbox if they don't have one, or buy a PS4 if they don't have one, right? So then some people they kind of rebutted me with that one with, oh, well, if you need to buy an Xbox, just sell your PS4 and you should get some change to buy a used Xbox. 1, not many people want to buy a used Xbox, a used anything, okay? 2, what if they spent, dozens of hours downloading hundreds of games and they have them in their library on PSN? You're just going to force them to just say, oh, those are garbage now because you need an Xbox to play Paladins. No, you can't do that. It's not right. Okay? So the way this would work if we were to establish this immediately, right, into the second split or the second half of this season is during relegations, right? If you make it 6 teams per division, you have the top 2 per division are safe. Right? So it would be Onslaught heating up, Flashpoint, Aerial, Arise, if it were to stop today, right? Those 4 teams are safe. The bottom 2 teams, which would be the bottom 4 of those 2 divisions, would have to go through the open bracket of relegations, and then they would have to go through group stages with whoever else comes out of open bracket, and the top 2 spots make the league, and then you would have 6, right? If you do only 4 teams per division, then the top 1 team, so it would be heating up and Flashpoint or Xbox and Cyclone, right, per division are safe, and then the bottom 3 in each of those divisions have to play through the open bracket, and then the top 2 get the league spot. So it would be like Elevate and Cyclone are safe, and then Cats on Mars and Bustdown would have to fight the other 2 teams in their league, E-Storm, Retaliation, Viral, Radiant, and then whoever else tried to make it out of open bracket into groups, right? And then you would have a 4 or 6 team division, 2 divisions only, 4 teams go to LAN, could be any teams as well. We'd also see better quality matches during the regular season, especially if there's no console wars, right? Because we would see Flashpoint versus Heating Up, Flashpoint versus Onslaught. We would see Elevate versus Cyclone, or Elevate versus or Cats on Mars versus Bustdown, or Bustdown versus Elevate, and vice versa, whatever it may be. And then when they get to LAN, if we were to do a console wars, it would be a lot more competitive because these teams have played each other. They kind of know more about each other because they physically played each other in a league setting rather than just a scrim. So that's my idea. And that's all I have for today's show. So my name is Blue. This has been Console Corner. Remember, remain professional. If you got a meme or stuff like that, just keep it civil and don't do it too much because there's always someone looking out for you behind closed doors. And it's very hard for them to do just that when every single day they have to deal with stuff like that. Keep grinding, everyone.